And if you have been following and watching the discourse that we have been having for the past few weeks, yes, it's a fact. I have relocated into Zimbabwe. For those of you who, particularly in South Africa, who have been telling me to go back home, go back to my country, I must stop making noise in South Africa and getting involved in South African issues because my own country is in trouble and my advice is not needed here. I am putting my mind and efforts around trying to solve African things, but in particular identifying the South African storyline for where I've been living for the past 22 years plus. It's okay. I can categorically state it now that I have relocated into Zimbabwe. Yes, my family is still in South Africa as of wife and children, but I am establishing and working with some interested individuals in Zimbabwe to begin a narrative in conversing and talking around how do we solve the African issues. But I'm not here to justify or try to explain myself, but I think it's important for the South African community in particular to know that South Africa is part of Africa. South Africa is part of Africa, and the South African problems are African problems. The Guinea-Bissau problems are African problems. The Egypt, Ethiopia, Uganda problems and Sudan are African problems. The mining that is happening in Congo is an African problem. The oil that is being mined in Nigeria is an African problem. I say this because if our African leaders fully understood the resource which we are sitting on as an African continent, particularly the politicians, I released a statement a few days ago where I was saying, do we have billionaires in Africa? We know that the future is lithium. I say so because of the solar and energy crisis that is facing the world and the production of batteries, both for cell phones and solar energy. The appetite for those products is increasing quite drastically. And Zimbabwe happens to be having a huge deposits. We have huge deposits of lithium, and we just noticed in the past few days that some Chinese people have invested 422 million to buy a lithium plant or a lithium mine in Zimbabwe. And my call was, do we have a man, do we have a woman, do we have a company in Zimbabwe that could have that kind of money, the 422 million? Not only in Zimbabwe, maybe in South Africa, maybe in Congo, maybe Nigeria, who has the same amount of money. And while we are selling these resources to the Chinese, to the Americans, and to the British, who are of course hiding behind pseudonames and business partners. But we know that in as much as Zimbabwe is still under sanctions, the colonial system is still doing business in Zimbabwe using surrogate companies because the resources that are there cannot be managed by politics. This is economics. My idea was, is it not possible that the African billionaires can strategically begin to think and look at the future as to what minerals and resources and services will make the economy of the future, and then take their money and invest it into such resources so that we maintain and keep those resources within the African hands. This is important because as long as we still think that the foreign and outside companies will have solutions for our economic progress, we will still be rolling in circles, as it were. And I was appealing to the Dangotes, I was appealing to the Dos Santos, I was appealing to the billionaires of Africa, both on the continent and in diaspora, that look into the future and look into the sciences of the future, the 5G technologies that are coming up into the space, and find out what resources will they need to develop that kind of an economy and that kind of a world. And Africa is still supplying the resources to that future. My comment was, therefore, is it not possible that the African billionaires can move into Congo and secure the cobalt production, because that speaks to the cell phones and IT space. Move into Zimbabwe because that speaks to the lithium space. Move into Guinea-Bissau because that speaks to the bauxite, which is a critical component in terms of the manufacturing of steel and manganese and other base elements that are being used in the construction industry. Because as long as the colonial system, whether it is China or Europe or America, are still having their hands on these means of raw materials, we as Africans tend to lose. Every time your country is exporting raw material out of the country, be it cocoa, be it copper, be it gold, be it diamonds, be it cobalt, be it lithium, and any other mineral you can be talking about, platinum for South Africa, coal and etc. for Chinese market. Every time raw material is leaving the country, leaving the continent of Africa, you are exporting jobs, you are exporting jobs, you are exporting jobs. And this becomes a critical conversation for our politicians to say you cannot be signing contracts of giving away land, giving away resources, giving away minerals to foreign companies, because these same minerals are the means of production and actually a key component to the economies of our own countries. I would suggest break the rules as government officials. Buy these resources, invest these resources. Even as I speak right now, I cannot exclude the government of Zimbabwe that we needed to look into our coffers, whether it is through the Reserve Bank or through private sector or through PPP projects, access the money that is needed for these mines. You have the resource already because the land is in our hands. Then just go to China or Europe and buy the science, the technology, the IP to develop and produce and reproduce these mines and resources into products, so that we always don't have to look at investment in the line of foreign companies bringing money into the country, but rather we keep the resource to ourselves and then import the technology, maybe under a 10, 15, 20-year contract where they can come and work from the country, but we know that the resource is in our hands. Because unless we understand that, we are actually selling the future of our children to foreign companies. And I'm saying so with much understanding that if the present generation does not secure its resources, does not secure its means of production and create production lines that speak to the world and global economic sector, Africa will constantly be a supplier of raw materials but still be considered as a third world. Because if the Middle East, for example, quote-unquote Middle East, is known for producing oil and etc., the generation we're moving into right now, it is a technological generation which is depending on the base metals that Africa has. And the countries that are producing these base metals, they need African political will, the political will of our politicians, together with the economic sector, to say what can we give away to the foreign investors and what can we keep as our own national treasures. Because once you have the treasure as a country, all what is missing is the science and the technology. And therefore your universities, in your academic institutions, your innovation hubs, your technological institutions must find how do we beneficiate these minerals and resources and create industries that can respond to China and its need for these base metals, that can respond to Europe, that can respond to America, and as such we begin to position our African continent into becoming not only the supplier of raw materials, but now we are also supplying the end product. And between the raw material and the end product, the African continent will have created enough jobs to increase the GDP of our own African people and improve the lives of our own people. And as such, our African governments, particularly politicians, must not always think of collecting these small little deals, 422 million, and then you are able to be given a small little kickback of 42 million or 50 million as a thank you gift. But the 422 million investment that they have put will almost make for them 10 to 15 billion. So the long-term investments and the long-term return on investment is far much greater than the short-term investment. And what is amazing, it is that the short-term investment, our African governments, parastatals and private individuals have that kind of money in their own hands. I look around the African business people and millionaires, with all due respect, I don't have that kind of money yet, where they're buying cars, importing Bentleys, importing Mercedes-Benz, importing